Getting to know your draft picks week rolls on now with the 16th overall pick, Walter Nolen. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. You know the drill. I took a week away from the draft, kind of went big picture stuff. Kind of wanted to, not muddy the waters. Took a beat, little palate cleanser, and now we're getting to know the draft picks completely out of order because, listen, we're adults and we all have jobs and lives, and, I couldn't get it in order. But this is one of the more exciting ones for me. Steven Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, joins me to break down Walter Nolen, the pros, the quote-unquote cons, and what he's going to do for the Arizona Cardinals in the interior. Steven, first off, thank you for joining me.
Oh, not a problem at all. It'd be really fun to talk about Walter because I had conversations pre-draft with teams that were expecting him to go, including the team that was directly after the Arizona Cardinals. They were really hot and heavy on Walter in the pre-draft stuff, which might have explained the pick, as it were.
Yeah. It's fascinating because going into the draft with the Cardinals at 16, people were saying, week 18, the Cardinals beat the 49ers last year. It's like, oh, they're going to drop 4 spots. I'm like, they're going to get a top 10 pick at 16. Like, it doesn't matter. There's going to be a wide receiver. There's going to be at least one running back. There's going to be, a couple quarterbacks. So the Cardinals were already in a good spot in my eyes. I was a huge offensive line proponent there at 16 because if you don't protect the quarterback, none of this is going to work. And they added Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell in the offseason, shore up the edge as well. But my question to you, say this were an offensive line and defensive line draft only, would Walter Nolen be a top 5 pick?
Yes, he absolutely would. I think he's the best defensive lineman in the country coming into this NFL draft. This is not Robert Kimdichie, which Arizona fans are going to recognize the Ole Miss and the defensive lineman, the first-round pick. This is not Robert. Walter Nolen is the best defensive lineman in the country. Robert had holes in his game. He was not really an effective pass rusher. He was more of a space eater on the defensive line. Walter Nolen is much more of an all-around defensive lineman. It is very hard to find holes in his game. I think he is better than anybody else in the draft at the defensive line position. And honestly, Arizona probably got a steal at 16 with him.
The hell are we doing here? So, like, Monty Ossenfort, one of the things my dad actually tells me, and people say it's like, do the small things right, and good things tend to fall your way. It's not like necessarily karmic. It's like, just do things the right way. And the Cardinals in the first and second round of this draft had Walter Nolen drop at 16 and Will Johnson, who I had them taking at 16 if it wasn't an offensive lineman, drop in the second round. So things are starting to move in the right direction for the Cardinals, an organization that is, historically been dysfunctional and irrelevant, et cetera. Things are changing now. Talk to me about what makes Walter Nolen so different. I know the quick twitch is there, which is going to add very nicely to Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell up front. But tell me more.
Yeah, you really took the answer from me, the quick twitch stuff. And he can do some Thor-like things on the defensive line that would surprise you. There was 1 or 2 pictures coming out of fall camp or practice of him just one-arm Reggie White manhandling offensive linemen in the SEC. I think you will see somebody that can contribute fairly quickly at the NFL level because he has the feet, he has the quickness, and Lord knows he has the strength. Once he puts it all together and gets some NFL level coaching, which we all know that college is starting to get there with the advent of analysts and things like that, them having multiple coaches on the defensive line is going to help Walter Nolen even expand his repertoire even a little bit more. And when you combine all that quick twitch, all of that strength, all of that lateral movement, side to side stuff, especially going against zone run dominant teams, he is very good against those systems. You will see the a Walter Nolen that gets even a little bit better, and that's a scary proposition for people because he likes to compare himself to Aaron Donald, and we all like to roll our eyes when somebody says something like that. But you can see a little bit there of how he can get to that level. He's not there yet, but you can see his ability. He has the tools to get there. He just has to kind of put it all together.
Yeah, and just for optics here, I didn't know all of these things one person could achieve. 2024 Big Narek Award semifinalist, Walter Campbell Award semifinalist, Outland Trophy finalist, USA Today All SEC second team, All SEC first team, according to some, All America honorable mention, All America second team, 2024 All America first team, 2024 consensus All American. That's a lot for one dude in the SEC, where the defense isn't what it used to be. In spots, it is. You got your Georgias, etc. Ole Miss has kind of been the Lane Kiffin experience has been fascinating. It's a lot of Jackson Dart, ruminating around it because obviously he's the quarterback there. But Walter, when you said a couple things that I'm not going to touch on now because his first segment could be all 30 minutes. 6.5 sacks in 2024. Is he a guy that opposing teams must scheme for if they want to keep their quarterback upright? Or is that the trajectory that he could be at in a couple years with right coaching?
You could not single block him last season. If you single blocked him, he would destroy. He was a play destroyer. If you did not single block, did not double team this defensive lineman, he was going to wreck whatever play you had going on, whether it was a sack on the quarterback, stopping the running back for a multi-yard loss. He is somebody that required a double team every play. We always talk on my show that the secret to football is not hard. And what Alabama and Georgia has done over the last decade or so is pretty simple defensively. You look and see them having a dominant defense, and you wonder how that happened, other than the fact that they're all 5 stars. But let's just get past that for a second. They have defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, a 3 technique and a nose guard that you must double team, that you must set up 4 offensive linemen to block those 2 players. And then they got jackrabbits on the outside that can cause all kinds of problem. That speeds up your quarterback, that makes it to where you can't run the football. And when you have that much talent at the linebacker position, lets them run freely. Walter Nolen is a player, one of the 2, that is going to require a double team every time he snaps the football in front of him, because if you don't do it, you're not going to be successful.
That's crazy. At the Steven Willis on Twitter, Locked On Ole Miss, giving the insight to Walter Nolen, 16 overall pick for the Cardinals. The one, so that sounds amazing. And it sounds great. And I watched some film on him, obviously not 1% of what you have over the last couple of years. The one thing that fit is important with any young NFL player. I think the Cardinals have a fantastic ecosystem, leaders all around him on the defensive line and in the coaching staff, the pass rushing room. My front seven is going to be great. And I'm going to ask you just to reinforce this. He's now going against dudes who don't have French class on Monday. It's a jump. So double teaming a guy. So obviously he's an NFL guy. He's an NFL player. You can tell right away when he's playing college, he's playing against college kids. He has bigger things. You think that's going to translate day one or as close to day one? He's got the skill set and the twitch, as you mentioned, to be able to do this against grown men as close to right away as you'd hope.
I think he's going to have a very easy learning curve into the NFL. He has the tools in his toolbox to do it, but he has to realize that technique-wise, he is going to have to learn some stuff to be able to handle these 30-year-old men that are blocking him, as opposed to these 22-year-old, as you said, French students trying to block him. Once he figures out the technique and figures out the mental aspect of the game, the world's going to be this man's oyster. It just is. He was the number 1 recruit coming out of high school when he went to Texas A&M. Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher was a little bit of a train wreck. He didn't have the biggest numbers. Then he transferred to Ole Miss, and Randall Joyner kind of unlocked him as a player, and he became exactly what he was supposed to be. If he was the top defensive lineman in college and the top defensive lineman in high school, there's every expectation that he's going to be a perfectly good NFL player.
And it begs the question, why the hell did he drop to 16? There were some off-field, quote-unquote, issues, which I think are laughable. I'll get Steven Willis' take next here as we roll on Locked On Cardinals, your team, every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Man, NBA playoffs are ripping. Did you watch? Good luck picking who's going to win the championship. But regardless, FanDuel's got you covered every night. They deliver. And whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel is making it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Again, if you want to pick the future on who's going to win the championship, good luck, especially after last night where the two favorites both fell. New to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Steven Willis, Locked on Ole Miss, joining me. This is I was looking forward to this. How the hell did the Cardinals get him at 16? So the question is, why? Okay, so the off-the-field issues were the biggest thing. Naturally, this comes back to the Robert Nkemdiche, where he breaks his ankle or something around a pool, and then he never, like, Robert Nkemdiche thing, and I'm going to go off here for a second. Cam Scadaboo was a guy at Arizona State. The Cardinals fans are like, oh, they should draft him because he went to Arizona State. I'm like, that's so dumb. Who cares that they were in the same state? It's just this fallacy that humans think sometimes. I'm like, I don't care that Robert Nkemdiche went to Ole Miss. That is completely irrespective of the player that we're talking about now. So with that, though, the little wrinkle into it was the off-the-field issues. I saw a lot of just non-bottled passion that was unable to be kind of guided into just violence on the field. You know, it's something where he's a kid. He's young. He's a young man. And he just needs the coaching necessary to kind of harness that into being even more of a demon than he already is. Is that accurate? Is there more to it?
Yeah, if you look at Walter Nolen, the reason that I guess that his reputation and all of the rumors started popping out was from his time at Texas A&M. And there were rumors that we got when he transferred to Ole Miss is like, oh, Walter takes plays off. You know, you always hear that, especially with an interior offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, by the way. They take plays off. Everybody takes plays off. But still, yeah, you have a situation, they talk about it. He doesn't go all out. He's hurt too much. And, you know, the top ability is availability, you know, that type of stuff. And those rumors started popping. Honestly, I didn't see a single one of those when he got to Ole Miss. When he got properly coached, when he was on a good team in a good environment, and he could kind of front run a little bit, Walter Nolen was everything you hoped he would be. And that's what we had in 1 year of his Walter Nolen experience at Ole Miss. And I guess his reputation still proceeds from his time at Texas A&M. But listen, that time at Texas A&M, it was a train wreck. It just was. It was bad. Jimbo Fisher, he got paid nearly $100 million not to coach football anymore. Think about that for a second. And whenever players sense what's going on, because they're not dumb, they see what's going on. They understand. You think of them as robots, but they see all of the drama and the politics that are happening behind the scenes, and that can affect them one way or another. And it may have affected Walter. It did not affect him at Ole Miss because he walked into a great environment with great coaches and the top defensive line in all of the country. And he just simply played like he was the top defensive lineman in all of the country, to the point where they were dominant. Number one in the SEC in scoring defense, number one in tackles for loss, number one in sacks. They were legit good last year. The fact that they didn't make the playoffs is probably more of a Lane Kiffin issue than a talent issue. But when you look at Walter Nolen, it definitely wasn't his fault. He did his part. And he, even though he stayed 1 year at Ole Miss, he's going to walk off of that campus as basically an Ole Miss Rebel forever and one of the favorites for like every 10-year-old that watched games this year.
That's awesome. I mean, and I'm thinking as you're talking, because it's interesting to hear like the transformation of somebody from a dysfunctional organization or somewhat close to it to what he got at Ole Miss. Like, do you think that, because remember, I mean, we've been football fans and talked about football for a long time. Like, when a player used to transfer 7 years ago, 8 years ago, it was always the player's fault. It was always that player thinks the player's a diva. That player, usually a quarterback, wants to play, thinks he's better than he is. And that's not always what the case was, but that's what it looked like. And now they're still with the NIL thing. It's kind of like I've used this a lot, like a an eclipse where it's like the sun and the moon are like here and they haven't fully cleared yet. So we don't know what the hell's going on in college football yet, but we're kind of right there. So maybe he's like the beauty of NIL is being able to transfer out of a bad organization into a good one. And that's more what it was, even though he's being looked at as a scapegoat for the former. Is that kind of what that was kind of convoluted, but do you know what I'm saying? Like
Texas A&M is one of the most wealthy fan bases in the entire country. Mm-hmm. It just is. And the fact that they have not won a national championships in any of the big three sports since before 1940 is an indictment on that system. Even in the days of the Southwest Conference, the SMU days, all of that, where money was flowing around everywhere, they still couldn't win. There is something systemically problematic with Texas A&M, and it just continued. And I think this NIL world kind of exasperated that a little bit. Whenever you kind of had what you had and just quickly had to go to fifth gear, it just showed every problem that they had in their organization. And Walter Nolen was a part of that Texas A&M class that at that time was the $20 million class, they said. It was one of the first NIL classes. Everybody thought, it's like, man, Texas A&M was spending money all over the place. And then they went like 8-4, like they always do. And once that happened, all of the cracks and all of the problems started for that group. And most of that signing class ended up playing elsewhere. I mean, players at Oregon, Ole Miss, I mean, they're all over the country. And it's really interesting seeing somebody having to deal with that and then going to a place like Ole Miss, which I've had Walker Jones on my show, who is the head of the Grove Collective at Ole Miss. And it's like, hey, we're not going to outspend anybody. We have to make $1 spend like $3 on everything we do. Every offer is going to be competitive, but it's not likely going to be the highest offer. So it requires them as an organization to be A, very efficient, B, very fun to play with, and C, have a brand. If you can do those three things with an efficient collective, you can be competitive. And Ole Miss has won 10 games 3 out of the last 4 years because of that.
God, I mean, it's like, it's giving me PTSD towards what the Arizona Cardinals used to be and what they are now. They used to be Texas A&M, and now they're closer to Ole Miss with the functionality and stability necessary to, harvest talent growth, maturity, and, young men who are good on and off the field. That's fascinating. And I didn't know any of that. So that's great. Now it comes down to this. It's fun. It's exciting. It's send me the book on the initial call, which was heartwarming, and the hug from Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort when they knew they got their dude. Like, you can't fake that excitement. What they shared together. It's like, oh no, we stole another one. It is exactly what they felt. Is he going to be an impact maker from day one with the ecosystem the Cardinals have in place? I'll discuss it next with Steven Willis, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Skylight. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more. They got them all. Make it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one. Easy to see piece. Like, life's complicated, man. And if you can have some sort of entity that you can just feed into and it syncs with your calendars already and into one place, I mean, sign me up. Right now, Skylight's offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/NFL. Whew, we're just getting started here with Get to Know Your Draft Picks week. Yesterday was Ohio State Locked On Buckeyes, Jay Stevens, with Cody Simon, Denzel Burke. Today, I mean, this has been so fun for me, Steve. Selfishly. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking the time. This is invaluable knowledge for my viewers and listeners to get to know Aaron Donald Jr. I mean, those, when he was quoted saying that, I'm like, this dude is a maniac. Like, having the ability to think that and stand by it and be like, let's rip. Let's just watch. Like that is a different, it's a good kind of crazy. It's the kind of crazy that you want. So with that so this dude, you alluded to it a little bit earlier in the show. You think this guy will have zero issue driving in the fast lane as a 16-year-old, just getting his driver's license, so to speak, week 1 of 2025?
I think the learning curve for Walter Nolen is going to be very small. It just is. He has some technique stuff that he has to pick up on because, like you pointed out, he's not going against somebody that has French class Monday morning. Yeah, he's got 30, 31-year-old men that have been doing this a long time that knows all the tricks of the trade. You have to learn the tricks of the trade to compete. Having somebody like Calais Campbell next to him is probably going to help him out greatly as somebody that's been in the league for a very long time. He knows the tricks of the trade. Having the coaches that the Arizona Cardinals are going to have is going to help him out as well. I think Walter Nolen has a chance to play a great deal in year 1. And as long as he stays healthy by the end of the year, I think he'll probably be a pretty big force if we're going to be honest about it.
So how coachable is he since coming to Ole Miss?
Again, not a single complaint.
Wow.
I have not heard a single complaint about Walter Nolen. He even played in the Gator Bowl. The only opt-out in the Gator Bowl was Pupal, who went to the Rams. He was the only player on that Ole Miss roster that opted out. Walter Nolen played in the bowl game. So that should tell you everything you need to know about a team dynamic player that he is, not in it just for a paycheck or something like that. He is absolutely there to help the team win the game. And the reason that all the Ole Miss players played in that game is Ole Miss had 9 wins, and they had a chance to have 10 wins 3 out of the last 4 seasons. Walter Nolen was only at Ole Miss this season. This is it. That record means basically nothing to him. If anybody had the right to be a mercenary, it was Walter Nolen. But Walter Nolen not only played, he played a lot, and he played well against Duke. Ole Miss blew him out, won the game, got ready for the NFL draft and Senior Bowl and all of that stuff, and the rest is history.
So, in summation, pretty much everything that you've read about Walter Nolen and the negatives are fugazi compared to in regard to the last year after transferring. Is that accurate?
I think if he goes into a dysfunctional situation like A&M, I think it could pop back up. I think that is probably the negative. But if you are a well-run organization with excellent veteran leadership and all of the stuff that he found at Ole Miss, you will get the Walter Nolen that Ole Miss got, as opposed to the Walter Nolen that Texas A&M got. I think what you put in is what you get out with Walter.
I love that. That's great button on top for all this. Steve, tell them where they can find you, man.
Locked On Ole Miss podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at the Steven Willis. Come on over. We talk a lot of football. Ole Miss just got a commitment on Monday or Tuesday from an Oklahoma State quarterback that nobody was expecting. So I'm about to dig into that a little bit today. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But Alex, man, I appreciate you having me on the show today.
Of course, man. Of course. Tomorrow, Sean McLaughlin, Jordan Birch, Locked On Ducks. We're going to break that down. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.